Well, they did it. NRG are your VCT Champions 2025 winners. After one of the most insane grand finals we have ever had in the entire history of the VCT, NRG eventually finally stop out the comeback attempt by Fnatic and bring home that trophy to Americas once again. So we're going to be taking a look at this game and the craziness that ensued and wrap up the VCT 2025 season in a nice little bow. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So this is the board we have today, the final match of the VCT 2025 season, and as I said in the intro, man, this was just an insane game. I wouldn't say it's the best grand final we've ever had. It was mainly just good because of how there was this massive comeback on Abyss, and then Fnatic were able to bring it to map 5. Because at the start of this match, just look at the score lines for both Corrode and Lotus. It was just an absolute wash in favor of NRG. Fnatic looked absolutely out of sorts. They looked like they just did not have it in them. NRG, to their credit, were playing incredibly well, but Fnatic just didn't bring it on both Corrode or Lotus. Then they make that comeback on Abyss, then they go to Ascent, and then they end on Sunset, but they can't beat NRG there. So we're going to be going through this game map by map. Starting on Corrode, this was NRG's pick. Of course, having the double map ban advantage during the map veto was very useful to them. They banned Haven as well as Bind. Very solid picks right there because Fnatic are very good on Haven especially. And Corrode was definitely a map that NRG were favored in, but Fnatic just didn't really show any fight here. While they would win the first pistol of the series and then convert the anti-eco, they then would lose their bonus, and then NRG just go on a 8-round winning streak, and it's looking dire. It's looking like it could be a 10-2 half. It does end up being 9-3, but they were just getting shredded, absolutely shredded by Brock and Odin. Brock, of course, winning the MVP of the tournament, but we'll get to that later. But this was the start of it. He ended up going plus 17 in this one, and yeah, he just kept hitting those shots. It was insane. And there would even be times where Fnatic would have the advantage. They were losing a lot of 5v4s. They just came out really slow, really flat, and just look at the scorecards for all these Fnatic players. The top fragger was Kayak with 11. They just had nothing going on. Their attack half was abysmal, but 9-3 comeback, maybe? Nope. NRG with a very solid attack side ended in 4 rounds. But then we go to Lotus. This is Fnatic's pick. This is a map that both teams are quite good on, but Fnatic, they yet again had a slow start and ended up going down 9-3. NRG winning the pistol this time. That's something they did have trouble with in this series and throughout this tournament as well, being really not good at pistols, so it's kind of shocking that they ended up winning, but they did. Fnatic would get their first round win at round 4, but then NRG would go on yet another win streak of 5 rounds. And then it's a little bit back and forth at the end of the round, but still NRG clearly in control here. Scuba, Mata, and Brock were just absolutely feasting in this one. Especially Scuba, while he did end with 13 kills, which isn't like a massive amount of kills, a lot of those ones were very impressive. He had his lurk timing down to a T. He knew exactly where to be and where to go for a lot of this match. And Mata, who's been up and down this tournament, but at his peak can be one of, if not the best duelist in the world, and he proved it here. He looked amazing on this map, getting 20 kills, just an amazing attack side for NRG, putting them in the driver's seat here. And then Fnatic would win that second pistol. They get their anti-eco, but then NRG, they win those 3 rounds in a row to get to map points. Fnatic would get 1, but then round 19, this one is over. Again, Kayak, the only one doing anything on Fnatic here. He did not want to lose. He was the only one that went positive, 21 kills, 15 deaths, and 4 assists, plus 6. So he was top fragging the entire server, but when you look at NRG's scoreline, you see how the kills are very evened out. And that's what's been very impressive about NRG during this tournament run. They don't necessarily have one player that was playing at like a amazing superstar level. Yes, Brock won MVP of the whole tournament, but it's not like they have like an OSPOS level player. They just have a group of really, really good players that know how to play with one another. But when they're hitting their shots, they look like the best players in the world. And this one just looked like Fnatic was just going to go out in just a really, really sad way. You go down 2 maps to none. Now you have to reverse sweep, which Fnatic have done before, and they also got reverse swept during the Esports World Cup Grand Finals, so this is a position that Fnatic are familiar with. But then on map 3, it looks like this one is going to end even quicker, looking like this is going to be the worst Grand Final we've ever seen in the history of Valorant, because NRG was just running away with this one. NRG's defense side was impeccable on this one, and Fnatic are usually very good on attack on this side. In fact, before their first match against NRG this tournament, they had a flawless run on the attack side on Abyss. And that whole first half was just moments of Scuba and Brock as well as Ethan just absolutely playing around Fnatic, toying with their food, saw him standing up and yelling at them. So much trash talk was in this grand final. And the crowd was basically dead because the crowd was entirely behind Fnatic, being, you know, the European team. And for the majority of the first half, they were just silent. They didn't have anything to cheer for. There were moments like Crashy's getting killed right before he does his ultimate by Scuba twice. Fnatic looked frustrated every single time there was a shot of them sitting there during either a timeout or halftime. They just looked done. It just looked like they knew that they were about to lose in one of the most embarrassing fashions you possibly could. It ends up being 11-1 in favor of NRG, 2 rounds away from taking home the Champions Trophy. And then Fnatic turned it on. The map flips, and so does the whole series. After a very good start on the pistol round from Fnatic, they were able to build momentum, winning their anti-eco, getting to the bonus. There's a chance here now. The crowd's starting to get loud. Now they have something to cheer for. Boaster's finally standing up again. Now it's looking like NRG are the ones that are frazzled, especially after they do get around at round 18 to get to championship point, where they ended up having 6 opportunities to win the entire series. But Fnatic, with just some amazing heroics by Kayak especially, just holding down that B site. Crashies as well, after looking incredibly frustrated by Scuba's antics, he locked in. He was playing angry. He was standing up after every single round. He was pointing, he was yelling at Som, he was yelling at Mata. Just, it was so much trash talk. You could feel the energy of the arena start to shift. You could see that there was a possibility that Fnatic could come back. But it's still such a huge margin to come back from. No team has ever been able to do that, come back from 11-1 on the international stage. But Fnatic ended up doing it. Just some incredibly smart play, some really solid defense. Alphayear finally turned around his game. He had a rough series overall, but he did have his moments, especially during that comeback. Looking at Kayak's scorecard here, now what's interesting about this is Kayak had 5 kills during the attack side, and then he ended up having 19. So he turned it on in that second half. Just an incredible turnaround from this team. Again, Kayak did not want to lose. I remember how broken up he was after the Masters Toronto Grand Final loss, and then he loses Esports World Cup, and he's a rookie. It's not like this is like a veteran that's been around for a long time that like just keeps getting close to a trophy and just can't do it. No, this is a rookie who has just started his time in Valorant, who's looked amazing. But losing sucks. Losing's terrible. People hate losing, and that's completely fair. So he was just like, nope, screw it, we're not losing, let's go. And that is exactly what happened. Fnatic bring this one into overtime. NRG finally get around at round 26 to continue overtime, but Fnatic, they had the momentum, they had the energy of the crowd. The crowd is electric at this point, and they end up winning this one around 28. We're going to map 4. And honestly, while I was overall cheering for NRG on this one, I was glad this one ended up going more than 3 maps, because man, this was just, watching this and watching this, it's just like, what are we doing here, man? So seeing this just absolutely insane comeback was honestly a treat, even though it was just like, oh my god, how is NRG losing this? And then we go to the Ascent, where we see our first mostly normal scoreline. It still ends up being pretty dominant on the side of Fnatic, this one being their map pick. They definitely had the read on NRG here, not letting Brock abuse the Odin as much as before. Man, Brock with that gun, I don't even know what you do against it, but Fnatic found a way in this map 4. And NRG win the pistol, which it kind of seems like in this series, when they win the pistol, they end up losing the map. So, you know, maybe don't do that. Maybe just keep losing the pistol. Seems to work. But NRG start this one strong, and then Fnatic start to build that confidence once again, continuing the momentum from map 3. They would not let NRG breathe on their attack side. Alphayear turning up for this map. He ended up having 23 kills, plus 9. Kayak as well, getting some really nice shots with the op. He was dangerous on that gun during this match. And it ends up being 8-4 at the half. Fnatic just doing a very good job in the post-plant situations. Just not letting NRG get onto site comfortably. And then they switch to their defense side, where Fnatic would win that pistol. They end up getting to an 11-5 scoreline. It's 3 in a row from NRG to keep the dream alive, but 2 in a row from Fnatic, and this one is over. We're going to map 5 somehow. And then map 5 kind of ends up being a bit of a bummer. See, like, a lot of the maps in this one are just completely lopsided. Like, this isn't that bad of a score, 13-8 for Fnatic on Ascent, but 13-5 for NRG on Sunset to end this one. kind of disappointing. I was kind of hoping this one would be like a overtime Boehner one and just make my heart like just be in my stomach basically for the entire time. But no, it was kind of like NRG kind of just had this, and yet again didn't start that well. They lost the pistol yet again, so just don't win the pistols. Works out. But after those first 2 round losses, NRG were able to win a very impressive 7 rounds in a row. 7-2 lead at that point, Fnatic needing to burn a few timeouts, and it just didn't seem to work. This is a map that both teams aren't really super comfortable on. NRG hadn't played it since Stage 2, I believe, and I think they lost it every time. And for Fnatic, it was one of their perma bans. So both teams not loving this map, but it ends up being the decider. And then it ends up being 9-3 at the half. Ethan leading the way for his team. He was locking down those sites. Every single post-plant situation, this man just seemed to be in the right spot. And there were some moments where Kayak specifically could have turned the map around for Fnatic. There was a 1v2 situation that was pretty favorable for NRG because they had the spike, but they, for some reason, walked away from the spike. And then by the time they came back, Kayak was able to plant the spike and get a kill to make it a 1v1, and he ends up losing it anyway. So it's just little moments like that. There were rounds in the Sunset map that Fnatic could have won, but for the most part, it's the same story as what it was in Corrode and Lotus. Just those little mistakes, those advantageous situations that you end up losing, that can really hurt your mental, and it's really hard to come back from that. They found a way to do it on Abyss, but not on Sunset. So it ends up being 9-3 at the half. Fnatic win that second pistol yet again, but clearly that just does not matter for NRG. NRG get to match point. I believe it was like a 1v5 situation for Crashies, and you just couldn't do it. And with that 13th round win, NRG are crowned your VCT champions of 2025. Looking at the team MVPs, it's pretty obvious picks for both teams. Brock, who did end up winning the MVP for the entire tournament, which is definitely deserved. While he is an Odin abuser, and a lot of people are probably going to use that against him, it worked. And as they said on the analyst booth, if it was just that easy to just fry everybody with the Odin, then everybody would be doing it. But Brock is especially good with that weapon, and he was amazing in this match. 84 kills, 61 deaths, 40 assists, for plus 23. An absolutely amazing performance. I was thinking Scuba also could have been the MVP for NRG, but definitely ended up going to Brock, and very well deserved. Then on the side of Fnatic, the main reason why they were able to bring it to map 5 was Kayak. He ended up going 90 to lead the entire match, 75 and 14 for plus 15. So he played amazing. As I said earlier, he was desperately trying to keep his team in it. He really did not want to lose. I could tell he has a very, very big hunger for winning, and it just didn't go his way in any of the grand finals that they ended up going to at the international level this year. Looking at the economy of this game in terms of pistol rounds, 4 wins on a pistol for NRG, 6 for Fnatic. In terms of wins on an eco round, 4 for NRG, 6 for Fnatic as well. Then we get into the half buys, 11 wins on a half buy for NRG, 12 for Fnatic. So Fnatic leading in all of these categories except for the full buys, where it's 45 wins on a full buy in favor for NRG and 22 wins on a full buy in favor of Fnatic. So that really just tells the story right there. While there were moments that Fnatic could dominate and could beat NRG, mainly in those pistol rounds, and were technically better on half buys, getting more of those thrifty round wins. When it came to the full buys, NRG were just buying the op, they were buying the Odin, Mata would fry with the op, and Brock would just shred everybody to bits with the Odin. And that alongside just some great coaching by Bonkar, some great adjustments, and just the mental fortitude to not completely collapse after collapsing on Abyss. They were able to calm themselves down, and while they did lose Ascent, they absolutely dominated on Sunset. So NRG with some very impressive mental here. That is something that has been evident with them throughout this tournament. They're able to go down in a big way and then able to come back, like that 10-2 comeback to start the tournament versus Edward Gaming. So things like that, as well, just some amazing performances by rookie players and Brock and Mata and Scuba. But now to talk about some little narratives that we can talk about from this grand final. So Ethan is now the first 2-time champs winner, doing it with Evil Geniuses back in 2023. Of course, that roster did not stay together after that. So this was his second crack at it with a different team, a much different situation for him as well. And it definitely seemed like this one was more satisfying for him. He definitely seemed to enjoy this win more instead of kind of being a passenger on that Evil Geniuses team. Still a very important player for that team, but definitely not like the main focal point. Whereas on this NRG team, his calling was very good. It's improved massively. No one can question whether or not he's a good IGL anymore. He's proved it. And his individual performance was amazing as well. This guy is amazing. Then just to twist the knife a little bit, as I already touched on, Fnatic lose 2 straight international grand finals in a row, adding in Esports World Cup, which I wouldn't when we talk about the VCT because that's a third-party tournament, but there was a big grand final that they made, and they lost that one as well. So Fnatic I don't know what you do from here. I don't think you make any roster changes. I'm not even going to imply that because, like, how can you make that argument when they've gone to back-to-back international grand finals? But what's really interesting about this Fnatic team is back before 2023, Fnatic was a team that choked. They were a team that looked really good at a lot of different international tournaments, but they could just never win. In fact, going to the very first grand final in the VCT history in 2021 in Reykjavik, of course, losing to Sentinels, getting swept there. So that was kind of the start of it, but they had their chances, and then they got to lock-in, and they finally won. And what's interesting about that lock-in one is this one kind of reminded me of it. This grand final and the lock-in grand final are pretty similar stories overall. You have one team almost sweeping, and then the other team coming back, but then the team that almost swept eventually winning in the end. So that was in my brain as I was watching this one. But for Fnatic fans and for the Fnatic members of the team, both are, of course, just crying right after the match, and I don't blame him, and that just sucks. He has won trophies before, but that Champs trophy is that last one he's trying to get, and he just can't do it. I'm sure one day he will, but of course there were questions in the press conference about, well, how long is he going to stay? Is he going to retire soon? He is 30 years old, and while there are a few 30-year-old Valorant players, there aren't that many of them. But if there's anybody that can play until he's 35, it could be Boaster. We'll see. I don't think he does. Maybe 2 more years, I'm going to guess, but we will see, man. You only get so many kicks at the can. That's why when you make it here, you have to make the most out of it. And unfortunately, while Fnatic were able to make the comeback, they ended up not making the most out of it. Especially because on Abyss, Fnatic made the largest international comeback ever, being down 10 rounds, 11-1, and coming back and winning the thing in overtime is just... I was shocked at what I was seeing. It was crazy. But they're a very good team from the Fnatic perspective. I am proud of the boys and how they were able to perform at this tournament and at Toronto. They just couldn't get over that final hurdle, and that's the one you got to get over to be champions. So that's just how it goes. But then on the side of NRG, man, what a performance from them. Brock just absolutely turning it up. This is a player that came in during stage 1 and was okay. He wasn't fantastic for NRG. But then during the playoffs of stage 2, he was just annihilating everybody, and then he goes to Champs and then wins MVP. So that's just crazy to me. And I've already talked about Scuba a lot. Som, I gotta talk about the trash talk. So much trash talk from him. He was standing up after every single round win and just yelling at Fnatic. He really, really wanted to win this one, and then he did. And he's been around for a while as well, so he is very deserving of this trophy. Ethan being the first 2-time winner. Bonkar, man, I mean, on a chicken nugget salary, I guess he can get a lot done. But yeah, this was a really interesting grand final. As I said, I don't think it's the best we've ever had, especially because of that last map, but still a very, very entertaining final and a very, very entertaining tournament as well as season. This is the last match of the VCT 2025 season, and I will still be making content, so still subscribe, still like, and still check out my videos. But this is the last video that I will be making about a VCT match in 2025, and overall, I think it was a very good season. I think the international tournaments were amazing. I think each grand final was pretty good. Some really interesting teams that won, players that finally got trophies, and teams getting close and falling short. All the drama, all the stuff going on, I think made for a very, very entertaining Valorant season. So, as I said, I will be making videos in the off-season. Stay tuned for a bunch of roster mania stuff, as well as more videos about teams and players. But that's the end of Champions. That's the end of the season. Let me know what you think. How did you feel about this grand final? How do you feel about this season as the whole? Do you think Fnatic end up winning a grand final in 2026, or are they back to being a team that chokes everything? Let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. Please click like and subscribe if you enjoy this video, and thank you all very much for watching me during the season. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.